Welcome, everybody. It's time for another episode of Sales Pipeline Radio. So grab your board. We're going to catch a wave. See what's the latest and greatest in this ever-changing space with the guardian of the galaxy himself, Matt Hines.
So we went from Silver Surfer last week to the guardian of the pipeline galaxy.
I think so.
That's an upgrade.
I think
sounds broader. Well, thank you, Paul. Thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome, everyone, to Sales Pipeline Radio. It is apparently Serious Decisions Day here on Sales Pipeline Radio. I was just listening to CRM Radio, the show right before us on the SLMA radio network, and they were featuring another guest from the Serious Decisions Conference. For those of you not familiar, Serious Decisions is a analyst firm in the B2B marketing space that has every year they put on a summit and get about 3,000 B2B marketers together, and some refer to this as Marketing Nerd Prom, which it has elements of that for sure, but it's just a great sharing of information, new insights, lots of great research on what's going on in the B2B marketing world. We are producing this live show today live from San Diego, very near the show floor. And it's been a great week. Lots of good learning, lots of good people here. One of the companies exhibiting here is Terminus. They are one of the leaders in the CRM, leaders in the ABM, the account-based marketing movement. And their group has put together the Flip My Funnel, the hashtag Flip My Funnel movement. It's done a fantastic job of raising awareness for the account-based marketing opportunity, and really, really pleased today to have Sangram Vajre, the CMO and co-founder of Terminus, on today to talk to us a little more about, keep trying to say CRM, Paul. We're going to talk about ABM, beyond the hype, beyond the hashtag, what happens next, how do we put this into play in our organization. Sangram, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, man. Matt, I feel like I should just call it ABM for CRM, and it's given number of times you have said CRM so far.
Well, I mean, given that I'm at the Serious Decisions Summit, you can forgive me for being a little acronym crazy. Everything is abbreviated somehow down here. But yeah, no, we are here to talk about account-based marketing. I feel like this is one thing that 2 years ago, like the term account-based marketing, maybe barely existed. Today, it's on everyone's mind, and everyone's at some position of either doing it or starting to do it or thinking about it or trying to figure out what it means. And your movement that you co-founded with the hashtag Flip My Funnel, I think has probably had more impact than anybody and anything to really raise that visibility. Talk a little bit about Flip My Funnel. Talk a little bit about what you guys have done in the ABM space to get where we are today.
Sure, and thank you for sharing that, especially from someone who is the guardian of the galaxy. It feels really awesome to hear that. So ABM, obviously, as you said, like it's out there. Everybody kind of gets it. And you're right, 2 years ago, like when I remember doing a Google search of it, and there wasn't anything outside of the ITSMA kind of article and maybe even a sales decision article somewhere, and it wasn't really part of it. So very quickly, like my background, I ran marketing at Pardot, went through the acquisition of Salesforce, spent a couple of years in Salesforce before starting Terminus. And one of the big reasons I kind of started Terminus was because, wait a minute, as a marketer, everything that I'm measured again is leads. And I know in my gut, I knew at that time, I still know, and I think pretty much every single marketer and sales person knows this, that you are not measured on, measuring on leads is the last thing you want to be measured on, because it can, there's a step after step, like the first start of less than 1% of the leads turns into customers. That's true, right? And that's insane. Less than 1% leads turn into customers. That's not something that you want to get your name associated with, that you're giving in garbage. So really for me, that's the problem that I felt and I saw when I was at Salesforce, and we started Terminus with the idea that let's just challenge the status quo of this thing, and ABM just seemed like a natural part of it. So very quickly on Flip My Funnel, I was at a Martech conference with Scott Brinker, flying there from San Francisco to Atlanta. I was on a flight. I was sitting in the middle seat, 5 hours flight. You think it's crazy, but when you're sitting next to two drunk people, it actually gets super crazy and weird. And that's how I was sitting for 5 hours. And I had to get something to do. So I just had a piece of napkin and a pen, and I started to draw this traditional funnel that Scott talked about, and I flipped it. Funnel hashtag born. I was excited. None of the two drunk people were excited, but I was really excited, and just wrote about it. Ended up writing a book on account-based marketing. Ended up doing a ton of events, and Matt, you've been super supportive of it. And thankfully now there are 6,000 plus people on the Slack Flip My Funnel community and online, where people just want to talk about how to do ABMs. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're talking to Sangram Vajre, the CMO and co-founder of Terminus today about account-based marketing. He is the author of the very well-written book, ABM for Dummies. And I love a good origin story, and I really wish there was video of you in that middle seat with two drunk people, and in the middle, that cocktail napkin that sort of started this entire movement. But let's talk about where this goes from here. I think, we've gotten to the point where I think a lot of people understand, they've heard of ABM, they understand a little bit of what it means. I still hear a lot of people say, well, isn't this just, better targeted marketing like we've always done? Is this really new? Is there a new angle to this? And, no matter what their opinion is, people are trying to figure out, how do I translate all this potential into execution? And, of course, that's a big question, because to do this well, there's a lot of moving parts, but what is sort of the game plan that you guys recommend to Terminus customers and others exploring ABM? How do you really take this idea and make it operational, put it into practice?
Yeah, and that's a great question, and we feel like that's like on almost everyone's mind right now if they're not articulating it maybe differently, but that is on everyone's mind. It's like I get it. It's obvious, right? And in 2 years from now, Matt, we should timestamp this, and I think everybody's going to say that, yeah, this is B2B marketing. What else were you doing 2 years ago, right? So this is just going to become the standard. But the problem is people are still stuck in this demand generation idea, which is give me more, and then give me more, right? Which is more leads, and that will solve all the pains. And we all know that doesn't really do that. And sales and marketing, all this idea of like who's working on what lead, and that is my opportunity, and I should get the credit. It's a crap load of stuff. So really, I think account-based marketing really starts with the idea, and that's where the flip my funnel kind of movement really started. Is like, let's just focus on the best fit accounts, right? And once you start having that conversation, you're no longer worried about credit. You're worried about how do I get my foot in the door, my being our company's foot in the door, and you start looking at tiering of accounts, saying that let's get into 50% tier 1 account, 40% tier 2 accounts, 30% tier 3 accounts, and really figure out ways to do those things. And that might mean any and everything, writing blogs, but doing webinars, doing articles and stuff. So when it comes to kind of answering your question of execution, I think the execution is not as hard as people make it sound, because the planning part is the hardest part, right? It's the idea that if you are tasked with driving revenue, and if the place you start with is leads, then you're just looking at everything as a nail and just want to use a hammer, right? And it's not that. We all know it's all different shapes, sizes, and people and companies and accounts that you want to go after, depending upon the size, depending on the industry. They all matter, and if they matter, then the messaging is going to be more unique and personalized. And we all want to do all this stuff. And guess what? You can't do these things at super scale. You have to get a little bit deeper down and get into the weeds, which means you have to spend time planning and doing things. And we all are become so, very much like, let's just do more. And that's getting problems. So execution, Matt, I believe, is not as hard. The planning is what's hard, and people are not yet jumping into the planning process with the whole heart of both sales and marketing in it. And I'll give you a quick example of like where people can find the fastest and the easiest success. And we all know that piloting programs is the best way to kind of test the waters. And I think people pilot the wrong place. People pilot the demand generation side of the house because that's where they want, right? It's like, let's just get into these 50 accounts and advertise or direct mail or do all the things that you possibly can with these 50 accounts and see what happens. Well, that might work or that may not work because you don't know where they are in their buying process, in their thought process, in their budget process, and all that stuff. So there's a lot of unknown variables. But when an account raises their hand and says, I'm going to buy from you or your competitor, why wouldn't we go sales and marketing and the entire company all in on those accounts? And I think pipeline velocity is the best way for companies to actually prove value of account-based marketing.
Yeah, lots of good wisdom in that from Sangram here on Sales Pipeline Radio today. Where I think the moving into execution, improving execution is surely a part of this. I think you can't underestimate the cultural change required for companies to fully embrace account-based, what do we call it, account-based marketing, account-based revenue, account-based everything, not just from marketing organization, which all of a sudden now is not just focused on, like you said, they focused on the more. I think too often marketers focus on more traffic, more leads, more of things that just provide volume, and focus more on quality, on pipeline contribution, on focusing on and measuring the same metrics that the sales team cares about and focuses on. So you've got a cultural shift within marketing. You've also got a cultural shift between sales and marketing. Real quick before we got to take a break here. What are some of the keys that you guys recommend and that you see working for companies as they begin to approach those cultural shifts inside their organizations?
I think the biggest one that Matt, I see is just aligning, and it sounds like cliche, but it's true. It's just aligning on the goals, aligning on the fact that when are we going to call this success? I think that's where most people don't ask that. They just jump into with their hands, feet, and head in water, and before they know, they're like too deep or too far away from where they want to be. And so the problem with account-based marketing or jumping in it too soon, too quickly, without the planning part of it in their minds, is that they just don't know what the goals are. And unless you say that, let's say my goal is to get my foot in this door, right, or feet in these doors, right? Or if it is like, hey, I want to essentially create air cover for these opportunities that are in our pipeline, you got to have some sort of goal. And it sounds pretty stupid, quite honestly, but that's really what we do. We just jump in.
Yep, I love it. Love it. Talking to Sangram Vajre from Terminus on Sales Pipeline Radio today. We got to take a quick break, pay some bills. Come back, talk a lot more about account-based marketing. We're going to talk about a little bit the new demand unit waterfall that came out this week from Serious Decisions and how that is what they've done with the waterfall is very clearly a nod to the ABM opportunity and ABM movement. We'll be right back. Sales Pipeline Radio.
Building a sales development competency is critical to lasting revenue growth. Learn how to grow your business and register for the Modern Marketers Workshop, Sales Development, the essential building blocks for revenue growth. A fully online interactive workshop on June 6th and 7th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Pacific. You'll learn how to build a scalable, united sales and marketing engine to lead your organization toward your revenue objectives. Visit www.heinzmarketing.com/workshops. That's HEINZ marketing.com and register today. In a world where the speed of innovation and change in B2B marketing has never been greater, the only thing bigger is the need for clarity, for a blueprint, for a guide to what's really working and how to apply it specifically to increase sales pipeline growth, velocity, and conversion. That's what you'll find in the Modern Marketers Field Guide. Download it free at heinzmarketing.com.
All right, back to Matt and his guest.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Paul. We're very excited, obviously, to be here again on Thursday, as we are every Thursday at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific for our live Sales Pipeline Radio. If you like what you're hearing and you want to hear more of it, you can catch all of our past episodes. They're all available on demand for free, salesPipelineRadio.com. If you want to make sure you don't miss a future episode of Sales Pipeline Radio, whether you're able to join us live or not, make sure you follow us on our podcast. It's available with Google Play and the iTunes Store. Coming up in the next couple weeks, over the next couple months, actually, we've got some great guests joining us on a number of different topics. Next week, we have Paul Teshima, who is one of the co-founders of Eloqua and is now the co-founder of Nudge. We're going to be talking about the power of relationship marketing in what is increasingly a distracted and fragmented world. We're also going to have Grant Cardone join us. If you're in sales, you recognize the name Grant Cardone. We're going to talk about his 10X system. We're going to have Daniel Gauger, the CMO at PFL, and what they're doing to increase omnichannel and to bring back offline marketing opportunities and channels into the B2B toolbox. I want to continue more today with Sangram Vajre, who's the CMO and co-founder of Terminus. And, I don't know how much you've seen already. I think literally yesterday morning they released here, Sangram, the new, what they call the demand unit waterfall. And Sirius has had their demand waterfalls for years and is really where terms like marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead, and others were born. About 4 years ago, they released an updated demand waterfall that actually added quite a bit of level of complexity in terms of where the leads were coming from, whether it was marketing, telemarketing, from sales. The new demand unit waterfall released yesterday eliminates the word lead. It eliminates really the distinction between sales and marketing, and so they use this term demand unit. And so instead of talking about leads or stages, they simply talk about different levels and stages of demand. And they did that intentionally because they know that this isn't sales versus marketing. This isn't, well, I've got this company or I don't, because sometimes there may be multiple instances of demand within an organization. And I felt like it's a simplified model that has a lot baked into it, but I felt like that was a strong nod to what we're seeing in ABM. Not sure how much time you've spent on that, but curious your reaction to the direction they're taking on the waterfall.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely watching curiously on Twitter and all the tweets that have gone on that. And it's funny, it's like paparazzi thing. It's like as soon as the new waterfall, people are just ready with their phones, snapping pictures and tagging and tweeting. It's so funny. Marketers are actually nerds. They just don't know. Crazy way. But in general, I feel like, yeah, absolutely. It's a nod towards ABM, and that's great. And we all know ABM is like, just because it's called account-based marketing doesn't mean it's only a marketing function. It's like marketing, wake up. It's time to get on with the game here. Sales has already been talking to accounts. Remember, they don't hire lead executives. They hire account executives. So marketers stop talking about leads and get with the program. So I feel like it's really marketers who have been behind. And I'm not trying to kind of criticize anybody. I have been a marketer, and I've been one of the biggest proponent of lead-based in my days at Pardot. So I'm like just recognizing my own shortcomings and adapting with the future what it needs to be. But I also think, Matt, I don't know how much you kind of validate this, is like I do feel like these waterfalls and stuff, they make things complicated because it's hard to kind of tie everything together. And like the conversation, somebody listening at this radio thing that we're doing right now, and let's say they go to Terminus.com and fill up a demo request, how do we, like, unless we give them a promo code or something like that, how do we track that, right? So I think it's increasingly hard with number of ways people can get to know who you are and what you do. And I think the credit system between sales and marketing needs to go away, but that doesn't mean accountability goes away. And I just worry that, we're just trying to put more and more models, and it just makes the finance guy go nuts. And but really, I don't know if it really helps marketers and sales to do real marketing and real sales.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you. I think there's a huge opportunity for more marketers to embrace what I'd call marketing performance management, which is, the practice of making your marketing better, understanding what marketing is working, leaning in on the things that are working, and reducing your efforts on things that aren't working. When it comes to attribution between sales and marketing, I agree with you. I don't really care that much about that. I mean, if you've got an inside sales rep and a field sales rep, and they're both focused on building pipeline and closing deals, they don't worry about who got credit for the next deal in the pipeline. They just have a common goal. And I think to a large extent, so should it also be between sales and marketing. And I think, if there's any, legacy of, I guess, what I will call sort of hashtag ABM frothiness, as we sort of get into a mode where this becomes part of what everyone is doing as a foundational part of their marketing. I think one big impact of the spotlight on ABM is not just revenue responsibility for the marketing organization to embrace the metrics that the sales organization cares about, but a much tighter alignment between sales and marketing, where you eliminate some of those turf battles, where you no longer worry about where it came from, knowing that this stuff is complex. Let's not pretend that the white paper download generated the 7-figure deal that took 9 months to close. That it takes time to do this. I want to shift gears just a little bit, because you bring a lot of interesting angles to the conversation. And I know we've been talking a lot about account-based marketing, and we talked a little bit about Flip My Funnel and a little bit about the book ABM for Dummies, which I highly recommend everyone go and check out. And you can find that at Terminus.com. But I also want to talk about just the Flip My Funnel movement in general, less about from the ABM angle, and more from a marketing strategy angle. I mean, you guys have been very successful at using sort of an entity and a brand that is parallel to the Terminus brand to raise awareness for the category, raise awareness for the opportunity, and therefore also raise awareness for the product and the company. If you would, talk a little bit about what that process has been like, what that experience has been like, and what lessons you've identified that might help other marketers with similar opportunities, leverage that angle as well.
I'd love to, man. And how much time we got? Like, we get to go on that from this.
Well, Paul's going to cut us off in about 9 minutes, if not less. So yeah, we're yeah.
So in general, you're right. I think it has been a phenomenal experience. Never done this before in this fashion. And, I think when you're trying to build a new category or be one of the people who are helping build the new category out there, you have to create enough buzz and noise about it. And we in Terminus, we're based in Atlanta. We're doing really good, but we're not going to be able to compete with the market if we are not out there, right? And what I realized was nobody really cares in the very early days, Matt, like this is really going to sound weird, but like nobody really cares about your product in the very early days. Like just nobody. Like they care about that you care about them. And they care about that you care about their problems. And I'm going to sound like, pretty crazy here, but that's really what helped us win a lot of the deals and a lot of the early momentum. And I think by doing Flip My Funnel, which is a clear philosophy, and Marketo used it in their stuff and as well. So now it's becoming, like, if you want to do ABM, go check out flipmyfunnel.com. It's a philosophy of how to think about strategically, and then also look at tools that can apply to that philosophy to do ABM. I think that's becoming the standard. And we set out 2 years ago saying, if ABM becomes a category, because we don't know that, and gladly it is, we want to make sure that everyone has a philosophy around how to do ABM strategically, not the details, but strategically. And if everybody out there actually starts using the Flip My Funnel model to do it without necessarily any attributions to Terminus or not, that'd be awesome, because now we have a category where we can go and compete. So I think that's very, very much how it all started. And as you know, Terminus has a booth just like everybody else at all of these conferences. We still haven't done really a Terminus session, if you will, at any of the conferences. It is all about bringing partners, strategic, amazing thought leaders like yourself and others to come and speak, and then bring also the competitors, today's or tomorrow's, who are all playing in the same space together. And we realize that if we all come together, then there will be enough people looking at it and saying that, maybe there's something here, and there will be enough conversations that will clearly create a larger community. And then it makes sense to compete with our product, but competing with our product first didn't make any sense to us, and we wanted to just make sure that enough people talked about the problem and that there needs to be a solution so that we, as a company, will have a chance to win. And now we feel like we're getting to that point where everybody's talking enough about it, but it was a very hard process to kind of think through. As you know, events are extremely hard. We did like 9 events or so in the last year and a half, like in 5 or 6 different cities. With the last one, we had 1,500 people coming in San Francisco with, 100 speakers and stuff. And so it's a hard thing to do without putting your brand out there, but we completely unbranded, didn't make it about Terminus, made it about the problem and the community. And to your point, it has definitely paid off.
That's awesome. Well, just wrapping up here with Sangram Vajre, the CMO at Terminus, the author of Account-Based Marketing for Dummies. And let's talk about some of the other resources that are available. You guys have done a great job creating a lot of great content. You've got a great team that's working with you to just provided some phenomenal resources. I know you guys recently released the top 45 ABM superheroes list. So lots of great other practitioners to check out there that are doing some great things in their own account-based marketing programs. You guys have produced a couple great guides to some more recent sort of curated lists of account-based marketing resources that have been well received. What are some other things that people should check out to learn more about account-based marketing, from Terminus and elsewhere?
Yeah, I think thanks for sharing about the 45 superheroes. So you definitely should check that out on Terminus. I think the one thing I'll ask everybody to kind of give a shot at and check out is we didn't know how this was going, but we put the ABM stack. So people can actually go to Terminus.com, and there's a link for ABM Stack there, and you can build your own ABM Stack. There are over 250 companies that have done it to see where the gaps are from technology and tools perspective. So I'd love for everybody to check it out.
Awesome. Well, we're running out of time, unfortunately, but I want to thank our guest, Sangram Vajre, the CMO and co-founder of Terminus, for joining us today. Lots of great insight. I want to thank the lovely and talented Lauren Patrick for setting all this up and helping us with content today. If you want to hear more from Sangram or hear a replay of today's presentation and want to share that with other folks in your organization or other folks in your network, you'll be able to catch that on salesPipelineRadio.com, a full replay of this entire conversation, including Paul's statement, a Guardian of the Galaxy, a commentary as well. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of our future episodes with Grant Cardone, with Paul Tashima and others, make sure you follow us on our podcast at Google Play and the iTunes Store. And look forward to seeing you whenever you can make it here live. Thanks very much for joining us today, live from Las Vegas at the Serious Decisions Conference. This is Matt Hines. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you next week on Sales Pipeline Radio.
You've been riding the surf, riding the waves with Matt Hines as he looks at the latest and greatest in sales pipeline world.